Wow. I have to laugh at this, and very rarely do I ever go to this early, but I'm going to go to it early right now. Just Charles Dead leading off the chat. Thumbnail, 2 Stunads. Now, for the people on the podcast, the YouTube thumbnail is Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, who addressed the media yesterday. We're going to get into that conversation, I promise you, but I don't want to start with drama. I don't want to start with just, whatever they said. You know what I'm saying? I want to start off with this. L'Jarius Sneed possibly coming to Philadelphia. Now, look, franchise tag by the Kansas City Chiefs with the option to trade him. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, put out a story yesterday about how they're still going to explore a trade with L'Jarius Sneed of the Kansas City Chiefs. Cornerback, not great, but certainly would be an upgrade over the way James Bradberry played last year. No question about that. If you're telling me if you can have James Bradberry out and L'Jarius Sneed in, I'm going to go with Sneed over Bradberry. And I think everyone in Philadelphia and everyone in Eagles Nation would certainly agree with that. Boston Scott has been doing a little mini campaign behind the scenes, according to Tony Pauline. So that's interesting. A little bit of Boston Scott. Milton Williams. Obviously, these aren't Darius Slay or Jalen Hurts campaigning for a player like Sneed to come to Philadelphia, but it's out there. And at least it's out there in the ether on the same day that Howie Roseman said James Bradberry is part of our plans. Now, look, it's in my headline. You're going to be reading about it. You probably already saw it. You probably already heard it. If you haven't, we have it on the show. We'll let you hear from Howie Roseman today. It is the most basic response you could possibly give. This is not a ringing endorsement. And any time in the offseason, a general manager or director of football ops or president of whatever sport operations for whatever team, anytime they say, I like our team, anytime they give an endorsement of a player in the offseason, when you have an entire offseason ahead of you, every time they go, yeah, this is good. I think we're good where we're at right now. I'm like, I said the same thing about Dave Dombrowski. In my lifetime, in our lifetime, a lot of us, Paul Holmgren once said, I like our team, and then traded the captain and Mike Richards, and then traded Jeff Carter as well. Like, this is to say you like a team or like a player or someone's in your plans, it means nothing. If there's possibly a way for the Eagles to move on from James Bradberry, that's going to be extremely difficult. When you're talking to like a release, if you just release him, like I don't know who's taking James Bradberry in a trade. Reuben Frank, I was reading an article from him on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Let's not forget Howie Roseman did trade Byron Maxwell. Let's not forget about that. Maxwell was 3 years younger than James Bradberry, so important to note that. But still, he was able to trade Byron Maxwell, who went on to do nothing after the Eagles traded him, but still able to move on from him. The Eagles, is it possible? Sure. I don't rule out anything. But what Howie Roseman said yesterday was a textbook response to a player under contract that is still here and whether or not he's in your plans. That was the question by Jeff McClain of the Inquirer. Yes, he's in our plans. When you talk about just releasing him, given that the idea of him being traded seems difficult to fathom, it's even more difficult to fathom the idea of him just being straight up released when you're talking about over $17 million in dead cap money for James Bradberry. So I don't really think he's going anywhere. I think the smart money says he stays here in Philadelphia. I would like the Eagles to move on from him. And it's not just because I think he's terrible. All of a sudden, it got old real quick, unfortunately. You can argue last year he belonged in the NFL's top 100 list more so than Darius Slay did. But it is what it is. But as far as James Bradberry goes right now with this team and this Philadelphia Eagles team, I wouldn't mind seeing him going elsewhere for whatever reason, if not just to help groom a guy like Keely Ringo, give him more of an opportunity. If I have the option, though, if it's Ringo or Jadarius Sneed, for instance, Jadarius Sneed, I'm bringing in Sneed. That I'd rather go with the experience. I'd rather go with a 27-year-old vet who is, yes, a big part of Patrick Mahomes winning those Super Bowls, but still been a pretty big part of a good defense, a really good defense, especially over the last 2 seasons under Steve Spagnuolo. So I'd love to see what he could bring to the table. Now, one thing I will say on the negative side of this, just to argue the other side for those that need both sides of this argument here, one thing that's needs to be noted, as good as Sneed was and has been for the Chiefs, I don't know if he's going to be that good for the Philadelphia Eagles and Vic Fangio. Steve Spagnuolo and Vic Fangio could not be more different. Those are two that we're talking about. One of the most blitzing teams in the NFL versus the Miami Dolphins, who still set a franchise record in sacks last year. I believe the number was 56. But when it comes to overall blitzing, Vic Fangio is not leaving his corners out on the line nearly as much as Steve Spagnuolo was over the last couple of seasons here in Kansas City. If you're asking me if Sneed's on this team instead of Bradberry next year, I'm a happy man if that's the case. But it is going to be a bit of a difference, Sneed going from that defensive scheme to the Vic Fangio defensive scheme. So that's one thing that needs to be noted. But still, if you're telling me you're going to have him instead of Bradberry, I'm a happy camper. I do like the idea of being able to move on from Bradberry, but again, I like the idea. I don't think it's likely. Like I said, let's hear from Howie Roseman coming up. We also got to get into the 76ers from last night's game. Good God, ladies and gentlemen. Not great. Not great. Could somebody before the fourth quarter, could somebody please help out Tyrese Maxey a wee bit? I looked up at one point. It was 30 points by Tyrese Maxey, and then I forgot Ricky Council had a couple of points. He was helping out. Tobias Harris struggling. We've talked about before. I know we touched on a little bit yesterday, but oh my goodness gracious, Tobias Harris is in such an incredible rut right now. I was shocked that he hit that three in the fourth quarter on the wing. And I think it was Maxey that gave it up. No, Maxey wasn't in the game yet. It might have been Kyle Lowry who gave it up to him on the wing, and he knocked it down and pulled the Sixers within 2. And then the Celtics went on a 17-0 run. But anyway, I was shocked that he knocked that down. He missed a bevy of threes. We'll get to his numbers a little bit later. But Tyrese Maxey, I am dazzled by. I am amazed by. One of my favorite parts of the game last night was Jaylen Brown just rattled off 6 straight points. Was getting rebounds, was getting putbacks, forced a turnover from Tobias Harris with a lazy pass from the wing to the top of the key to Campaign, I believe it was. And then Jaylen Brown jumps that route, essentially, takes it the other way, gets 2, and ended up scoring, I think it was 6 straight points on his own. Then Maxey rattled off, I think it was 8 straight points to help the Sixers at least keep pace. That, to me, was what summed up Tyrese Maxey for that game, was if you needed him to get something going, he got something going. If it was by himself, he was able to do that. The Sixers rallying in the early goings of the fourth quarter to put themselves back in that game and come back to just be 2 points down was a relieving feeling. All right, good. This is all positive things. Anytime you can compete with the Celtics without Joel Embiid in the lineup, I'm a happy camper. But you just had this feeling that either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum was just going to take over. And essentially that's what happened. Jason Tatum had the big exclamation point dunk. It was not great. It was not great. So we'll get to that. The Flyers played last night to get a victory despite part of the lights going out at the Wells Fargo Center. There was a little bit of a glitch in the system at the Wells Fargo Center, but the Flyers were able to get a victory there. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the show tonight. So today. So we'll get into all that more. Let's get into your fearless leader, Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, who both addressed the media yesterday. As one would assume, both left a lot to be desired when it came to what you wanted to hear from the head coach and the general manager. First, let's get to what has become a big story out of this. Again, I don't get a lot out of this, but I want you to hear the full context. Howie Roseman on the idea of James Bradberry still being part of the Eagles' plans in the near future.
I think he's an outside guy. I think when you look at the skill set there, I think that that was one of the positions that as we got into the summer, we kind of knew we needed some depth there. We gave some guys opportunities to do it. I got to do a better job of bringing in more guys to be able to play that position. I think that's one area that kind of you felt like in August maybe we needed to add, so we tried some guys. But when you look at JB and his history and his success as an outside corner, to ask him to do something, which is really a different position, is hard.
And he remains part of your plans?
Yeah, he's under contract, part of our plans.
All right.
Is that not just the most basic answer you get? Yeah, you're trying to be part of the contract, whoop, and then he exits stage right. Stage left, stage left. I don't take anything out of that. I think Howie Roseman is trying to move on from James Bradberry. I know the headline, and like I said, I have it here because it's essentially a quote, part of his plans. I don't believe you. Yeah, right now, it's part of our plans. But do we want him here? Oh, God, no. I think it's two totally different things here. Playing on the inside and the outside, is the question originally was basically checking on the versatility of James Bradberry. Maybe you do bring in somebody else. Maybe Keely Ringo does play on the outside. James Bradberry plays on the inside. Maybe you move on from Avonte Maddox and you have James Bradberry stay under that huge Kajunga contract for the foreseeable future, but for the contract. Maybe that's the way you go about it. But do you want to do that? No. Oh, okay. So he's still part of your plans because of the contract. Exactly. I don't think they want him here. I think that contract is a bad contract. I think Howie regrets that contract. And I think Howie and the Eagles would like to do something different. I don't think it's going to happen, though. He's too difficult to move. I think what I want and the Eagles want and what you want are all the same thing. James Bradberry not here. Very difficult for James Bradberry not to be. Oh, just eat the money. $17 million? That's not $2 million. That's not nothing. That's a nice chunk of change. That ain't good. Finding someone to dance with you for a trade, good luck. Hey, I said this is Howie season. This is time for Howie moves. A huge Howie move would be somehow, miraculously, moving on from James Bradberry and it not costing the Eagles a huge amount of money. That would be pretty damn, not even magical, miraculous. I hope they pull it off. I'm rooting for Howie Roseman to pull it off. Didn't really give much on the Hassan Reddick to move on from that. Didn't really move on. Wasn't asked about L'Jarius Sneed and players, campaigning for him, if you will. Talked about Hassan Reddick. Didn't really offer much in that situation. Hasn't really changed and won't change their draft process. So they're not going to be targeting edge rushers more so than they were had everything be hunky-dory with Hassan Reddick, or if everything really does hit the fan in the offseason. Last few weeks of the season he described as an apparition. Everyone on the planet that's an Eagles fan and says, yeah, I hope it's an apparition. But what are you doing to correct it? What are you doing to correct it? To make sure that it was an apparition? Okay, you brought in a new defense coordinator, basically overhauled your entire defensive staff. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to change coaches. You heard Howie Roseman say it right there. I got to do a better job of bringing in players for that. That's what it was in reference to the cornerback position with James Bradberry. Well, you still got a ways to go. Safety position, linebacker, still need another edge rusher. Probably going to need another defensive tackle. I know you got Jordan Davis. I know you got Jalen Carter. You're probably going to bring in more talent there. Milton Williams, one of the campaigners for Sneed. He's going to get an uptick in playing time. I'd love to get Milton Williams back on the show. He's been on the show. Great guy to talk to. Awesome guy to talk to. But you have a lot of holes to fill. Even if you don't consider James Bradberry a hole, you have three corners. You have three starting corners. And I know everyone's out on Avonte Maddox, and yes, they could move on from him in this offseason and not take a big cap hit there. So that's a possibility. They could restructure as well. That's a possibility. But there are a lot of holes to fill right now on this Eagles defense. So how are you going to make sure that last year was an apparition? Are you going to bring back Kevin Byard? Are you going to restructure that deal? Is he going to stay alongside Reed Blankenship? Do you feel 1 year? Because in Vic Fangio's defense, you're going to need some damn good corners. You're going to need some damn good safeties here. There's a lot of holes to fill if you're Howie Roseman. So last year being an apparition, okay, let's hope that that's the case. They asked themselves a lot this question in the offseason to this point. How do we get better? Why weren't we good enough? He was asked an interesting question, and I think this was also by Jeff McClain. Looking at quarterbacks in the draft, more or less the question was, what are red flags? What scares you when you're scouting a quarterback? I thought it was an interesting question. I was like, why is he asking that question? Are they looking at quarterbacks? Are they really interested in quarterbacks? Why are they asking that question? Why is Jeff asking that question? He went on to say all the things that he loves about Jalen Hurts. So in essence, he didn't tell you anything. He didn't answer the question and tell you, oh, guys that don't work, guys that are dumb, guys that aren't tall enough, guys with small hands, all those red flags. He didn't go into that. He was just like, I love Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' work ethic. He's going to work to make sure that he's always better at what he wasn't good at the year before and all this, that, and the other. All right. Fine. Although, I guess some players don't get coached as hard as other players, according to the story yesterday from Marcus Hayes. By the way, I saw somebody comment on that story. Oh, actually, let's get to that later. Let me finish with this, with at least Howie Roseman. He was asked about Shane Steichen. Obviously, they're in Indianapolis for the Combine, so I believe it was an Indianapolis reporter, a Colts reporter, it was, that said, hey, Howie, what do you think about Shane Steichen, basically? And it's like, are you a Colts reporter? All right, good. Now I have context. Okay. He went on to call Shane Steichen a savant. Asked about Shane Steichen. Savant-like approach to football. I don't know if he's ever said anything that nice about Nick Sirianni and football. A savant-like approach to football. The first thought I had was, has he ever said anything about that, like that, about Nick? I don't think so. So there you go. That was interesting. I have to go back and watch Howie Roseman around the time that they hired Nick Sirianni and like pick out the compliments. Like, what was the nicest thing he heard about Nick Sirianni? Well, he's a great guy. I don't know. I don't remember hearing savant-like approach about football. That's the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, your former offensive coordinator, who helped take you to a Super Bowl. Savant-like approach. What about Nick? Nick's a nice guy. I'll have to go back. Nolan Smith, still a work in progress. Talking about cap awareness. Was asked about getting more personnel for Vic Fangio. That is going to be part of the deal. Making sure that Vic has the guys that he needs in his defense. You heard part of how we say that right there. Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey waiting on their decision. And, of course, you heard about the James Bradberry deal. As far as your head coach, Nick Sirianni, I'm a little surprised that nobody followed up on the what is it you say you do here in a different way. Something along the lines of, Coach, a lot was made of you saying the offense coordinator is going to be in charge of the offense, the defense coordinator is going to be in charge of the defense. That's the first time you ever said it's going to be somebody else's offense. So what is it you do? I was surprised nobody followed up on that. Like, hey, Nick, just to clarify from the last time we spoke about your role. Previously, we know your role as game planning. Is that still going to be your role? And through the season, is this still going to be your offense? In his previous press conference at the end of the season, he said it's going to be our offense. Okay, so what? Can you give us a little bit more details to what that means? When he was asked about Kellen Moore, I think this is the question regarding Kellen Moore and kind of what he likes about Kellen Moore and what Kellen Moore brings to the table.
So, it was about getting the right guys for the job. And I'm excited to.
This is Scuzzy. This is Kellen Moore.
How are you planning on changing the way you communicate with players a little?
Damn it! No, it's not. This one's about communication. It was the other thing that he was talking about. The question and the answer, I think, are in here. I think it's EJ Smith of the Inquirer asking a question about the communication with players. One of the core values that he has is be able to connect with players. Is he going to change anything with the way the season ended? Has that motivated him to change the way he communicates with players?
How are you planning on changing the way you communicate with players a little?
You go through, like, anytime you go through a season, whether it's successful in your eyes or whether it's not successful in your eyes, you look on ways, opportunities to get better. And my job is to talk to every single player, and I've done that. Talk to every single coach. What went right? What went wrong? What's your and you take that into account. You take everything into account, and you try to get better at doing those things. I think connection is our number one core value, and there were things that we as a team, myself, didn't do a good enough job of last year. Right? Maybe we leaned a little bit more into one category of our core values: connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals. Maybe at times I felt like I leaned maybe a little bit into one and not enough into the other. And so those are all things that you evaluate at the end of the year. And I look forward to, getting better and like I said to you guys before, like, we're not that far removed from having one of the best cultures, that any of us had ever been around. And that's, our players would say that, our coaches would say that, and it's just some tweaks that we need to do. But make no mistake about it, the things that, like, you can change how you communicate your culture. You can change little ways that way you do it with it. But at the forefront, we're never going to change what the culture is: connect, compete, accountability, football IQ, and fundamentals. And we have the
two big things from that. We're not that far away from having, the best culture in the league. We're not that far away. When he said that yesterday, the thought that went through my mind was, God, that seems like years ago. And I remember doing shows with you guys last year, leading up to the season, I should say, about different guys coming to Philadelphia, whether it was Kentavious Street or it was DeAndre Swift. The buzzword through every single offseason acquisition was culture. It was culture. And I remember saying, and I got into this a little bit yesterday, you go through the Super Bowl hangover and all those teams that have gone through the Super Bowl hangover. And the reason I didn't think the Eagles were going to go through that Super Bowl hangover, which they didn't to start the year, they're the end of the year, but at least they still made the playoffs. They didn't fall in a hole. But for the whole season, they did at the end of the season. But I remember talking about culture and how the culture in the locker room was going to help carry this team over any hangover. It was going to be the morning chugging of Gatorade after you have a hangover to just propel you for the rest of the day. Like, I got this. Give me 3 Advil, the whole thing of Gatorade. Ice cold, baby. Maybe a fountain soda. A greasy cheesesteak, you know what I mean? That would be the hangover cure. It has been for me in my time. But that would be the cure for the hangover, the Super Bowl hangover for the Philadelphia Eagles. The culture would be that cure. Looked like through the majority of the season, up until that historic collapse, that it was. But when Nick Sirianni said we're not that far removed for having like the greatest culture in the NFL, yeah, I mean, factually speaking, you're right. But feeling-wise, after what we went through to end the year, culture, because one of the things that was so insane was listening to the guys in the locker room talk about, how, everyone's focused, everyone's playing for Nick. And then hearing like Dallas Goedert say after we made the playoffs, we kind of kicked our feet up. There's no problem with Nick Sirianni. There's no problem with the locker room and Nick Sirianni. Culture's fine. Culture's good. Everything. I'm like, what? This seems, because what I'm seeing does not match what you are saying. Like, you can tell me that everybody loves everybody and everything's great. A.J. Brown rides with Nick Sirianni. But I'm watching the games and everybody sucks. Just all of a sudden, everyone's done at the same time. There's no rallying cry. There's no, Sirianni rah-rah speech that gets everybody focused. Apparently the one that he gave the team before the Giants game at the end of the season, the last game of the regular season, fell on deaf ears because everybody just went out there flat as hell. Except Quez Watkins went up and got that touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota. But we're not that far removed from the culture being great. Wow. That hit me like a sledgehammer. Because it was like I was like being put in a time machine, and I felt like I went back to 1985. It's just like, wait, hold on a second. This culture, oh wow, yeah, this culture was once great. This was a great culture. Jalen Hurts tells you that he wants to run it back with Nick. Got his wish there. Jalen Hurts tells you he wants to run it back with Brian Johnson. That doesn't happen. Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox taking up for their head coach, yet that didn't show on the football field. A.J. Brown feeling like he has to do a radio call-in to set the record straight, at least about himself, and to tell you how much he loves his teammates, holds himself accountable, holds his teammates accountable. Then you have a report come out from Marcus Hayes talking about how a veteran talked to him about how there's different rules for different players. And this is what I was going to get into earlier. I forget your name, I'm sorry, but somebody tweeted me, tweeted the show yesterday and said, basically, when you look at this team and you look at any corporation, bosses play favorites across the board. Do not disagree. And I'm always the one telling you, they're not that different. They're just like us. When you talk about professional athletes, you talk about organizations, clubs, franchises, all that stuff. They're not that different than us. It's still a work environment. There are people at work you don't like. There's people at work that you tolerate. There's people at work that you love. There's people at work that you can't. Oh, I can't wait to talk to them about whatever. That's all great. That's every workplace. It's not just the NFL. It's not just an accounting firm. Whatever. It's everywhere. The difference I see here is that you're not performing that job in front of a stadium full of 60, 75,000 people. You're not performing that job in front of millions of people across the country when you talk about ratings or national televised games. You're not doing that. You're not doing it with the goal to play in the Super Bowl, which, again, set another ratings record this past year. We can see the mistakes being made. And when you publicly come out and say that you're going to correct those mistakes, but you're going further to correct those mistakes with some of the lesser-known players than you are the bigger name players, that's a problem. Because then that player that needs to correct mistakes like Jalen Hurts this year, you're not doing all you can to make sure you're getting the best possible quarterback you can get. It's not just about putting players in the right position to make plays in a game. It's about getting players in the right mindset and in the right thinking the right way going into the game. That's a huge part of coaching too. It's not just play calling and scheme and game plan. It's about actually coaching. Nick Sirianni, okay, if you not calling plays, doesn't have emotional control of the locker room anymore, or not able to motivate the players anymore, if he's not able to stop the bleeding at the end of the season like he wasn't at the end of this season, then what's the other thing? Be a teacher. We've talked to John McMullen on this show, and we've interviewed John McMullen, obviously, throughout the season on every pre- and post-game show and all that. And John McMullen talks about a lot. Nick Sirianni, the coach's coach. He loves to coach up his coaches. Great. Can you be a teacher for these players? Can you help groom these players? Grow these players? Hearing Howie Roseman, another thing he said yesterday was telling Nick Sirianni it's okay to play young players. Play young players. Let them get better. Well, what about your more experienced, more talented players? Jalen Hurts. Are you really coaching them that hard? Because I heard time and time again this situational football thing. Oh, we're going to correct this mistake. We're going to correct these mistakes with situational football. Play good situational football. Okay, when? When does that start? Are we going to – is that an off-season plan? Because 49ers game, I didn't see it. The Commanders game, didn't see it. Seattle didn't see it. What is that an off? That must be an off-season plan because I didn't see it during the season. But talks about coaching these guys up, talks about communicating. It's not a good look. Not a good look at all. When you have a veteran player on the team telling a reporter, well, yeah, but some guys have different rules. That I acknowledge. And I agree with it yesterday. I still agree with it now. That's going to happen everywhere. It's not just going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles. But when mistakes are continuously made throughout the season and you never correct them, don't you got to do something a little bit different? I think you got to do something a little bit different. One more question was asked of Nick Sirianni from, I think this was Zach Berman of All City. And Zach Berman asked a question about turning over the offense, turning over the defense, but not turning over the offense in terms of coaching staff. This is how Nick Sirianni got into that.
So, it was about getting the right guys for the job. And I'm excited to, have the experience of Vic here. He's obviously been an outstanding coordinator for for a long time, a very long time in this league. Shoot, he was telling me the other day when we were driving up here that the combine when he first started was in New Orleans. I can't even fathom how. So he's been in this league for so long, been successful for so long, and I'm really looking forward to that. Because as well as we've done on defense in the past, dating back to Jonathan. Jonathan was a first-year coordinator, as I was a first-year head coach, and Sean was early on in his I think it was his second year as a coordinator, and so I'm really looking forward to that experience that Vic will provide. Vic's a great play caller. He's done it again, like I said, he's done it for a very, very long time, at a high level, and I'm really excited for that experience we have. As I think it's important. That Vic had, some of his guys that he's worked with before and that know his system and know the things that he requires.
Yep, that's why you got to get those guys around him to turn over the offense or turn over the defense. And I agree with that. And a coach should have his guys around him, which is why it's so weird that Nick Sirianni, I don't really think has a lot of sway in guys that he has around him, which is unfortunate. But here we are. I still think that the biggest thing that sunk this team was throwing in the towel on your defense. When you made the change in defensive play caller, you sent a horrible message throughout the team, and for two reasons. One, we were 10-1, and at that point 10-3, in spite of you, defense. How dare you, defense? It's all your fault. Hey, we were the only ones to get into the end zone against the Cowboys in Dallas, right? Shut up, defense. Get in the back. And then it also neutered your head coach, because I don't think Nick Sirianni let his players know that, hey, by the way, we're making a change. This is my call. No, I don't think that's the way it went down at all. And I think Sam Reddick told us as much when he was standing at the locker. That's what sunk the team, trying to turn it over with 4 games left in the season. Bad move. Again, I referenced the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills made a change at offensive play caller, offensive coordinator. They literally fired their offensive coordinator, brought in a new one. And then, that was week 10. They had plenty of time to get it right, even against the Eagles. They put up, 30 plus points in that game? Well, but it was against the crappy Eagles defense. You're right. You're right, it was. But still, they had enough time in the season to correct it, to get on the same page, get used to a little different terminology. Not this time with the Eagles. Not this time with the Eagles, unfortunately. A couple more things from Nick Sirianni, just referencing here, not clip wise. Did examine why they fell apart. You really can't put his finger on one thing. If he wants Jalen to be more of a vocal leader, he says people lead in different ways. You never want a leader to not be himself. I agree with that entirely. But even if you're as quiet as a church mouse, man, if things are ablaze around you, you got to say something. You can't just be like, well, I'm going to lead by example. No, sometimes that doesn't work. Not that Chase Utley didn't say anything. Didn't talk, wasn't a motivational guy. He would talk to umpires. I mean, there's plenty of stories about that. But, every once in a while, you got to say something. It can't just be, well, I'm going to run hard down the first baseline. Or I'm going to dive for a first down if you're Jalen Hurts. That'll be how I lead. That can't always be the only way. I'm not saying he's got to go in the locker room and rah-rah speech, high school Harry, flip a chair, flip a table, whatever. He doesn't have to be that guy. But he does have to be the guy that every once in a while, if you're a captain on the team, if you're a leader on the team, if you're the quarterback, the franchise guy, you got to pick and choose a couple of words. We've seen him speak in the locker room after wins. Hey, it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but we got it done, blah, blah, blah. That's all. That's great. Do that. That's fine. If you could do that throughout the week or once, pick your spots, then you got to do that. I don't need him every single game to be breaking the team down after pregame warmups and giving the Braveheart speech. I don't need that. But if there's bleeding, like there was at the end of this season, it can't just be, I'm going to let A.J. Brown handle that. I'm going to let A.J. Brown handle that. It can't be that. It can't be that. So I don't need him to change everything. I don't need him to all of a sudden be like, all right, well, where are my pom-poms? I don't need that. Pick and choose your spots. If you're the type of person that likes to be more quiet and lead by example, I get that. But you also have to have a couple of bullets in the chamber that you can fire off to make sure people get motivated. And that's something I think Jalen Hurts needs to work on. Again, that's it's like running the football. Oh, are we running too much with Jalen Hurts? No, pick your spots. Pick your spots. That's all we're saying. Again, we talked a lot about culture. He talked about culture yesterday. You heard that cut. The Kellen Moore's scheme complimenting Nick Sirianni, what complimented there. There were no real specifics. He just kind of rattled off Kellen Moore's resume more than anything. He didn't really get into any specifics there about what'll work. We'll throw the running backs more. We'll use the running backs more. Oh, we're going to stretch the field more. No, that wasn't anything. Wasn't brought up. Was asked about Jalen Hurts making him better. Says he's an MVP candidate. Fell off the rest with the team. Everybody fell off. Everybody fell off at the end of the season. It was a whole team thing. Jalen played outstanding football at one point in the season. I don't agree with that. Even though he was an MVP candidate going into the 49ers game, I just never felt like Jalen Hurts was that. After the Bills game where he led him down the field in overtime and scurried in for that 11-yard touchdown run, I think it was, in overtime to win the game. I was like, oh, Jalen's back. And then the whole team was gone after that. A.J. Brown, one of the best. This was interesting. A.J. Brown, one of the best players he's been around. And he was always a fan of wide receivers. He was told he was too young for Mike Quick. Howie says, you were too young for Mike Quick. And he's like, oh, no, I was a big Mike Quick fan. I love getting interviewed by Mike Quick now. And I thought that was a cool moment, just a neat moment. You can identify with the fan base a little bit. But overall, A.J. Brown, the best Eagles wide receiver. I said yesterday, the greatest wide receiver, the best wide receiver I've ever seen put on an Eagles jersey is Terrell Owens. Hands down. Not even close. And that includes A.J. Brown. Not even close. If A.J. Brown stays here for a few more years, if the Eagles obviously get back to a Super Bowl, if he's a big part of that, which he would be, then yeah, I can entertain the conversation. But I feel like people are so desperate to put A.J. Brown and T.O. in, as A.J. Brown put it, that bubble. I ain't doing that. Talent-wise, let's have a conversation. Diva-wise, not so fast. Not so fast. But I would take T.O. on this team over A.J. Brown. Absolutely. And we're just talking about all the field capabilities. Oh, yeah, T.O. That's not close. That's an easy decision. So I thought that was a piping hot take from Nick Sirianni. Reddick's future, we'll see. To quote Nick Sirianni, I don't know how that goes. Running back room doesn't have an idea of how that's going to shape out just yet. Accountability. If a report comes out about how other players are held more accountable with the way this season ended, that ain't good. And remember, those quotes from the player came out after the Eagles lost to the Cardinals. So let's not forget that little tidbit of information. Oh, boy. That's where we're at. Before we get into the chat check, let me know, obviously, what you guys have to say about where the Eagles were at and what Nick Sirianni had to say and what Howie Roseman had to say from yesterday's press conferences at the Combine. Again, something a little bit more tangible. The Eagles, according to their players, at least want L'Jarius Sneed patrolling their secondary as a corner in the upcoming season. So we'll see if that actually plays out. Yeah, if you're just joining us, the big story about James Bradberry possibly returning and being in the Eagles' plans. I'll say this with Howie Roseman. I don't believe you. I think there's a plan drawn up about how they could possibly move on from James Bradberry. I just don't think they're able to make it come to fruition. Again, up to $17 million in dead cap money. No, thank you. As far as your 10-9-8 76ers, they took a loss 117-99 to the Boston Celtics in Boston last night. I think I said last night it was in Philly. It wasn't in Philly. It was in Boston. Tobias Harris, 5 for 19. 2 for 7 from beyond the arc. 13 points for a -20 on the game. 2 boards. 2 rebounds. Tobias Harris is a guy that I feel like I've defended more than most. But in this opportunity without Joel Embiid, he's had to get healthy. He's now back playing. Does he have to play himself back in the playing shape a little bit? Maybe. But seeing him not finish at the rim time and time again, seeing big situations in games where he has open threes and he misses them. He made one of them last night, pulled the Sixers within 2. Before that, I don't know how many corner threes he missed, but it was a bevy. Obviously, like I said, 2 for 7 from beyond the arc. I think at least 3 of those misses were corner threes, wide open, nothing. Not being able to finish around the rim, driving to the basket. And he's not like looking at the refs like he thinks he's fouled. He's just not finishing at the rim. This is the worst of Tobias Harris that I have seen since he's been here in Philadelphia. This is the worst. And there's been plenty of times where he's kind of had to remake his role, but he's always been low in that pecking order. Paul Hudrick, who joined us yesterday at Liberty Ballers, put it perfectly. Yeah, he's been pushed down the pecking order time and time again. But when you talk about his role, he's always been a number 3 or a number 4 guy. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid. Oh, number 3, Tobias Harris. James Harden, Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey on the rise. Tobias Harris kind of teetering on 3, back down to 4. In terms of the pecking order of scoring, it's always been a struggle here for Tobias Harris trying to find his way. And am I supposed to be the scorer? Am I supposed to be a supporting role player? Well, it's a pretty damn expensive role player. And to see him struggle the way he has been is unfortunate. And it is mind-numbing to go back to the other thing Paul said. He's going to play every minute of that contract. Good God. I found myself last night when I would see the ball in his hands open. I'd go, please, God, no pass. Please, God, no pass it. Pass it. Seeing him go to the rim, it's just struggling. And then, like I said earlier, the sugar on top for me was, or the coal on top, I should say, was his turnover to Jaylen Brown that helped cap off a individual 6-0 run by Jaylen Brown, excuse me. And it was an only turnover of the game, but it was just a lazy pass at the top of the key that went the other way. It was certainly rough. But yeah, I'm looking at the standings last night, or the stats last night, and at one point Maxey had 25, and I think at that point no other Sixer was even in double figures in scoring. And I'm like, Maxey's the only reason they're even in this game. The only reason they're even in the game, and it's obvious, but it's worth mentioning that Maxey was the only reason that they were in that game. They had that nice run at the start of the fourth quarter. They got to within 2, and then all went to hell. Mo Bamba was coming up some points. Ricky Council, ladies and gentlemen, 16 points. Ricky Council, 16 points in 19 minutes against the Celtics. He was getting first quarter minutes against the Celtics last night, people. Put back jams. Going hard to the rack. Going to the line. 4 for 4 from the free throw line. He was worth a text to a buddy of mine last night who's a huge Sixers fan. My buddy is always the guy that invests in the young talent. Ricky Council, looking like he's well worth that investment. Kyle Lowry only came up with 3 points. It was not by way of the 3. It was the old-fashioned 3, if you will. Mo Bamba came off the bench, 10 points, 6 rebounds. Sixers starters. Mo Bamba actually led the team in rebounds with 6. Of the Sixers starters, Paul Reed and Tyrese Maxey were tied for the team lead in rebounds. Of the starters, excuse me, with 3. Overall, this is where the Sixers, look, they lost the game in a lot of places, but the Sixers really lost the game in rebounds. Sixers only had 28 rebounds last night to the 56 by the Boston Celtics. That's not good. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. The Celtics also helped balance out their turnovers. In the first half, they really struggled with the turnovers. They had 14 in total to the Sixers' 9. But bottom line is, the Sixers, they just can't put teams away without Joel Embiid. And Maxey, as much as I love him, I don't think he's ready for that spot yet. Not against the Celtics, which of all the teams in the NBA, if you're not going to be closing out a game, the Celtics are the team to not close it out against because they're the best team in the NBA. So that's how you look at it. 117 to 99. For the Flyers, real quick, they get a 6-2 victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning. The lights, some of the lights went out last night at the Wells Fargo Center. They had delayed the game for a minute, and then they got him up and running. Tyson Forrester, if you have a chance to go back and watch it, had an incredible goal for the Flyers. So that was nice to see. But Flyers get the 6-2 victory. Let me tell you about the Game Time app. Hey, you want to go see the Flyers? You want to go see the Sixers? Check out the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app to your phone. Use promo code Farzy and get $20 off your first ticket purchase at the Game Time app. So if you want to go to the game, you want to go to the concert, you want to go to the big event, the comedy show, whatever the case may be, go check them out, ladies and gentlemen, at Game Time app. And if you find tickets in the same section in row for less money on another site, they'll get you back 110% of the difference at the Game Time app. So download the Game Time app to your phone, use promo code Farzy on the Game Time app, and enjoy all they have to offer. How about MyBookie? MyBookie.ag. Oh, my goodness gracious. You want to bet on hockey? You want to bet on baseball? You want to bet on basketball? You want to bet on it all? Do it at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. Download the MyBookie app to your phone. Use promo code Farzy, and you'll get up to you'll get up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. Take advantage of all they're giving away at MyBookie. Also, if betting on the world of sports ain't your thing, you can bet on the world of television. You can bet on the world of politics. What? Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Bet on the world of politics at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag. Let's get to the chat check and see how you wonderful people are doing on this fine Wednesday already, folks. Wednesday already. It's flying by. Charles Dead, it's worth pointing out again, 2 Stu nods in the thumbnail. If you you can see the thumbnail. Again, for the people on the podcast, it's Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni. You know what Nick didn't give me yesterday? Nick didn't give me the overly excited Nick Sirianni. And rightfully so, I guess. Sean Kilrain, what's going on? Sean Gillespie, good morning. April. Good morning, April. Tobias. I do, Sean Kilrain, I do love the Tobias Harris crumble cookie references. And where's Buddy? Buddy Hield clanked a couple yesterday. He was only, 2 for 7? 2 for 7 from beyond the arc. 2 for 8 from the field. Come on, brah. 6 points on, so he only made points on those 2 threes. But yeah, he was disappointing. It reminded me, okay, I don't mean this to be a hot take, but here it goes. Watching last night almost reminded me of the Allen Iverson days. Allen Iverson dying on the court, okay, doing everything he can to keep his team in a game. And then, and don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. I love these players. But there were long stretches where it was just Allen Iverson scoring, and it was like Allen Iverson keeping the team in the game, kick out to George Lynch, clank. Eric Snow from the foul line, clank. That's what it reminded me of. Can he just get some help? And then they'd get help for Allen Iverson, and he wouldn't use it. It's no, they had I'm not going to rehash that history, but that's what it reminded me of last night. It was can somebody, for the love of all that is holy and sacred, get Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey some help. Miss Guzzi. My fave thing is everyone saying Bradberry will be here as if he would say something else. Dev, thank you. You and I are pals. Good morning to you as well. We are pals in thought when it comes to that. Sean Kilrain, good morning. Everyone's saying nice. Or Sean Gillespie saying good morning. Sean Gillespie got to do a better job. Daz, but more as far as you starting your shows at 3 a.m. now? Where are you at? Where are you in the world, Daz? Oh, did I hit something wrong? Did I program the wrong time? Bumberry. Well played, SB. Daz, just watched Howie on NBC show. Ugh. More of Howie? No, thank you. Without Howie, we don't have 2 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years. One thing I will say is Howie is typically recognizes his mistakes and will fix it. Daz? Look at us. Look at us. I agree. And that's been one of the things I've been saying time and time again about Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, that if you don't like them, if you don't like Howie Roseman, if you don't like Jeffrey Lurie, don't get me wrong, I get why. But if you're talking about correcting mistakes, it is an amazing thing. And it can't get said enough. 2 different coaches, 2 different quarterbacks, 2 Super Bowl appearances. That's amazing. That's incredible. That shows you that at least the mindset, there's something to this, of at least Howie Roseman. I don't nearly have my front office blame has shifted away from Howie Roseman and gone more to Jeffrey Lurie. It's gone more to Jeffrey than it's gone to Howie. I think Jeffrey is meddling a little too much. Daz, again, I'm good with letting Ringo start. The kid is 21. His ceiling is high. We need to start playing our young guys. I would love to see it happen. Mia Sanchez, good morning. Maybe give Byard another chance. Bye-bye, Bradberry. I'm not opposed to giving Byard another chance if he has a full off season with his team. Maverick 1, Trashberry. Sean Gillespie with a Sirianni shout-out. Sean Gillespie, what culture was that last year? I know! That seems totally different. Seems like a billion years ago. Ridiculous. What's going on? Good morning, Farzi. I don't know of any team that could even win 11 games after losing so much of their coaching staff after the Super Bowl. We made hires that were not qualified as a whole. I agree. Look, the number one argument for bringing back Nick Sirianni is, everything was different around him. Everything was different. Oh, you had a different offensive coordinator. You have a different defensive coordinator and experience at those spots. Who told you to hire inexperienced? You rolled the dice. The Brian Johnson hire. And look, I think going into that San Francisco game, they had the third highest scoring offense in the NFL. They're averaging 1/10 of a point more this year than they were under Shane Steichen from the previous year. It was like 28 and 28.1. All right, so make of that what you will. But, all right, offense, they're still putting up points. They don't look as great, and they're not controlling games like they were, last year. But, they're still putting up points, so you can't be mad at that. But then at the end of the season, there was no cure-all. There was no adjustment to the adjustment that the league made on you. And that's where I think the experience comes in. So I hate to pile on Brian Johnson, but damn, that was some cocky-ass hiring. Let's bring in the guy with no experience. Play calling. He's got Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and DeAndre Swift and this offensive line. You can't go Dallas Goedert. You can't go wrong. You can hire anybody. No, you can't. No, you can't, because there's going to come a point where the league knows how to make that last chess move, and you're going to go, I don't know the bishop and the king and the pawn and the horsey thing and the other thing. I don't play chess. And that, I can't outmaneuver it. And that's exactly what went down. He meant not that far removed. I know he meant that not that far removed. It feels far removed from the culture. I want you to put the word out there. We back up. Okay. April. Boot and rally will prevent hangovers. Let me tell you something. My wife, she's a big fan of the boot and rally. Her whole family, actually, is a big fan of the boot and rally. She's got two brothers. And you got boot and rally. You got to pull the trigger. You got boot and rally. And I don't do that. I've never done it. I'll sit there. But I also got to admit, I rarely get hangovers. I mean, my drink of choice is whiskey. I generally just drink whiskey, bourbon. But I know kind of my limits, but I've gotten poop-faced. I rarely ever wake up the next morning with a headache. That rarely ever happens. I might wake up the next morning and be like, I'm still kind of drunk. Especially before I had kids. Holy Stromboli. I like to party. But, yeah, I'd always drink responsibly. Uber's a beautiful thing. But, yeah, the boot and rally thing is never my thing when it comes to the hangover. I was chug the Gatorade, maybe a fountain soda from Wawa, something like that. That's pretty good. A couple of Advil. We're partying. Where did that IQ go? I don't know. Soul vein. Sorry, Soul. Howie wants Sneed, Eagles fans. Thank you, Luke Skylifter. Why wouldn't you ever listen to Hayes? Why would you ever listen to Hayes? I bet his veteran guy is a guy that was only with us this past season and is gone. It'll be Roby or Morrow. Maybe. Maverick. Marcus Hayes is not credible. Please don't reference that class. He is very credible. These aren't just made up stories. I know the reason people don't like Marcus Hayes is because Marcus Hayes writes the stuff that people don't want to write about and people don't want to hear. But a lot of times it's true. But it is true. I'm not saying he ever throws just crap against the wall to see what sticks. Will he have an opinion that some people don't like? Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you're talking about quoting a story, Marcus Hayes isn't just making up quotes. That's not happening. Luke Skylift, we want Sneed. Eagles fans, we have Sneed at home. Howie. This is so awesome. I want McDonald's. We got McDonald's at home. Old Eddie Murphy bit. You ever drive with your mom and say you want McDonald's? She goes, I'll make you a burger at home. I'll make you a burger at home that's much better than McDonald's. And she doesn't have the bun, and it's just 2 pieces of bread. It's just like a green pepper in there. We have McDonald's at home. We have Sneed at home. Pulls out a picture of Bradberry. Luke Skylifter, phenomenal. I'm going to be thinking about that later today and laughing. Rooted in soil. What's going on? He's stumbling over his words. Who's Sirianni? Yeah. What is Sirianni going to say to Fangio? Buongiorno. Sorry. I had this thought yesterday. What if all the Italians with the Eagles were like Roberto Benigni Italians? Dom DeSandro, Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio. What if all those? They just had. Well, I was looking at the coaching staff yesterday. Oh man, this is going to bother me if I don't see it right now. Oh, come on. Come up, you stupid computer. So Vic Fangio, Kevin Patullo. Just all the Italians on the team. There was one more. Oh, Paganetti, the run game specialist, assistant offensive line. Valero, maybe Spanish. I don't know. All these guys. Oh, Panunzio. Oh, assistant special teams coordinator. Come on now. Just all of them Roberto Benigni Italians. Buongiorno, principessa. Andiamo adesso? All right. Anyway. Volare l'aquila volare? Anyway, sorry. All right, that's enough. Sorry. Scusi. I'll be laughing at that later. Defensive staff actually looks pretty impressive on paper now. They do. They absolutely do. Twiz, what's going on? Hey, tell your younger brother, you bastard. I know where you're going. Nick Sirianni is 1 year older than me. How dare you? How dare you? Tell your younger brother he needs to get some sleep. I actually thought Nick Sirianni looked refreshed. I thought he looked younger. I thought he actually looked like he slept. Only misery can ensue when you have Matt Patricia on your staff. Ridiculous, not bad. Sean Kilrain, Sirianni definitely got neutered. I want to see how this team is coached by the other coaches and see what happens. Yeah. No, hold on. Ridiculous. Listen to what I said. T.O., the greatest wide receiver I've ever seen put on an Eagles jersey. So that means there is no, you wear the jersey for 1 year and just talking about that talent. Yeah. You're talking about career Eagles? Absolutely. Carmichael Quick better. But we're talking about maybe the third greatest wide receiver of all time. Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and T.O. What else I got here? What else? Maybe Vic can use tackling. Ridiculous. Back to you. Tackling is coaching for sure, but to be seen is Vic can do anything with Trashberry. All right. Tackling needs to improve. One of the things that I brought up many times here is when you talk about Vic Fangio, everyone wants to talk about quarters and they want to talk about lack of blitzing. Next to no blitzing would be more accurate, okay? I get that. But also, the third thing that should come in there is discipline. Gap discipline, lane discipline, tackling. my biggest takeaways from those 49er teams especially were how quickly plays were done. Even plays that were passes were completed, tackles made. Catch, tackle. Yards after the catch weren't a thing. Wine Niners Wine, good morning. When are you going to body slam Billy about the Eagles again? Laugh out loud. Oh, Bill Colarulo. Tomorrow. I'm going to be on the show tomorrow again. Charles Dead. Did you get that too? Ringo Starr. That's exactly what I thought. What's Nick going to do? No way, Bradberry. Ringo Starr. Dad's from Cali. Oh, here we go. Flyers thing. Hey, Philly born and raised 4-4. As horrible as the Flyers have been, they might be the most exciting team we have in the city at this point. Yeah. Kinda. Although, what do we get? Bryce Harper back in the lineup today? Spring training? You know what I'm saying? Ooh, April. A Gatorade and Advil before bed, bacon, egg, and cheese in the morning. Nah, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. I will say this: of all the cities I've been to, I maintain this, and yes, it is because of the cheesesteak. The greatest city to be drunk in is Philadelphia. I've never been to any city anywhere ever. Dublin, Ireland is second. But the greatest city that I've ever been to, still Philadelphia, to be drunk. Dublin, they understand what you're there for. Okay? They understand what you're there for. Dublin understands what you're there for. The kebab stands, all over the place. That's a great hangover cure. The kebab. Sean Gillespie, no green peppers at McDonald's. Classic Eddie Murphy. Yeah. Who's Fugazi of the coach as far as he? I'm going to say none. I'm going to say none of them Fugazi. Come on. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful. I love you all. Wait, I didn't get King Pooty? King Pooty. No way Bradberry is back. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. Thanks, everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful, as per usual. Sixers. Let's get to the morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. And make sure you guys are following all things Philly sports at Philadelphia Sports Station, PHL Sports Station, Philadelphia Sports Station, enhancing your sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's PHLSportsStation.com. Sixers now 33-25 on the season. They're back at it Friday. So they got a little bit of time. They're back at it at home against the Charlotte Hornets for a 7 o'clock tip-off. One thing I do want to check out after last night's loss, where the Sixers are in the standings. They do drop down below the Miami Heat in the standings right now. Heat are occupying the 5th playoff seed in the Eastern Conference. The Sixers are just a half game ahead of the Orlando Magic for the 7th seed. Sixers right now in the 6th seed, just a half game up on the Orlando Magic. That's scary. Very scary. Flyers look to make it 2 in a row for themselves. They're back at it also Friday night against the Capitals. So don't miss that. And that'll be in Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are marvelous as per usual. I feel like there's one thing I'm missing here that I wanted to make sure I mentioned on the show. Yeah. Just to be able to point and laugh at the Cowboys here. Got these numbers on ESPN. Free agents for the Cowboys, if you don't know already, Tony Pollard, of note, Tony Pollard and Tyron Smith. See how that works out. Dak Prescott, $59.5 million hit against the cap in this upcoming season. Looking for a new deal. And they need to clear $9.9 million to reach the cap in the upcoming season. Just wanted to make sure that everyone knew the Cowboys are in disarray. Wait a minute. Cream chip beef to have on night out if you can't get a cheesesteak? Really? Huh. Thank you, Sean Kilrain. Ridiculous just says gabagool. I do enjoy how much Soprano culture has made people say gabagool. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You guys are awesome as per usual. Make sure you guys smash the like button. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell. All that fun stuff, too. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is The Farzy Show. Make sure you subscribe. You know, the other thing called subscribe as well on Jacob Media as well as The Farzy Show YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is The Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. See you guys tomorrow morning.